It's one of the most audacious films I've ever seen because it is a deeply detailed portrait.
Steven Spielberg didn't become the world's most powerful director by chance. He wasn't born knowing how to create dinosaurs, aliens, or war epics. The truth is shocking. His entire career was shaped by just 6 films. Movies that hit him so hard, they burned into his soul. Movies that rewired the way he saw the world. And one of them was so powerful. He calls it Perfect, the film that made him pick up a camera.
But for the most part, E.T.'s a pretty perfect movie.
These weren't blockbusters. They weren't safe choices. They were obsessions, strange, haunting, emotional. Each one left a scar, a lesson, and a blueprint that Spielberg followed for decades. And once you see the 6 movies that built Spielberg, you'll never watch his films the same way again.
I think, not my own?
Yes.
Lawrence of Arabia. I've probably watched that movie more than any other film.
Some films don't just inspire, they haunt. For Spielberg, that film was Lawrence of Arabia. He was only 16 when he first saw it. By the time the credits rolled, he wasn't the same. The endless deserts, the silence that spoke louder than words, the paradox of a hero who wasn't heroic. David Lean didn't just make a movie. He built a world so vast, it swallowed Spielberg whole. And once you've been swallowed, you can't go back. Spielberg later admitted it changed his brain, how he framed scenes, how he thought about silence, how he understood the power of scale. Look at Saving Private Ryan, Munich, Warhorse. In every wide shot, in every lingering pause, you can feel Lean's shadow. Decades later, when the film was restored, Spielberg personally helped oversee the project. That's how deep it ran. That's how much it still owned him. He called it his desert island movie, the one he could never let go of. But deserts weren't the only thing that consumed him. The next film would take Spielberg beyond Earth itself, into the terrifying silence of the cosmos. Spielberg admitted something rare about 2001, A Space Odyssey. He didn't understand it, and that's why it consumed him. Stanley Kubrick didn't guide, he provoked. He didn't explain. He dared. Space wasn't a playground. It was emptiness, vast, silent, terrifying. The long stretches of silence, the ballet of machines drifting through darkness, the cold stare of Hal's red eye. It shook Spielberg in ways he couldn't even put into words. He watched it again and again, not to decode it, but to feel small, not in awe of the stars, but in awe of what cinema itself could do. Kubrick showed him a truth Spielberg never forgot. Movies don't need to explain themselves. They just need to be honest with their own vision. Their styles couldn't have been more different. Kubrick, cold and distant. Spielberg, warm and human. But in the end, they collided. Kubrick entrusted him with AI before his death. A passing of the torch between oracle and believer. And though Spielberg never copied him, you can feel Kubrick orbiting his work. In Close Encounters, in Minority Report, even in AI itself. Because some directors you learn from, others you chase forever. But Spielberg's next influence wasn't about mystery or silence or even space. It was about love, death, and the pain of saying goodbye. Before aliens, before dinosaurs, before soldiers stormed Omaha Beach, there was a quiet little film called A Guy Named Joe. Spielberg didn't see it in a theater. He saw it late at night on TV as a boy. And it destroyed him. The story was simple. A reckless pilot dies in war. But his spirit returns to guide another man. Love, loss, redemption, all wrapped in the supernatural. Spielberg later said it hit him like a thunderbolt. He cried his eyes out. He didn't even understand why. He just knew cinema had reached inside him and rearranged something permanent. Decades later, he repaid the debt. He remade it as Always in 1989. Not to outdo it, not to modernize it, but to honor it. A love letter to the film that taught him the language of grief and hope. Critics didn't care for Always, but Spielberg didn't care either. That movie wasn't for them. It was for the boy who stayed up late, eyes glued to the screen, watching Spencer Tracy whisper goodbye. Because some films don't teach you how to direct, they teach you why. And while this one gave Spielberg the gift of emotion, the next film gave him something entirely different. It gave him magic, pure, hypnotic childhood wonder. Some films don't feel like movies, they feel like spells. For Spielberg, Fantasia was exactly that. He didn't just watch it, he was swallowed by it. a symphony of color and sound, dinosaurs stomping to Beethoven, stars exploding to Stravinsky. Mickey Mouse battling a flood with nothing but a sorcerer's hat. It wasn't about dialogue, it wasn't about plot, it was rhythm, it was motion. It was the discovery that music itself could tell a story. Spielberg later said it changed how he heard movies, not just how he saw them. The idea that emotion could rise and fall with sound, that visuals could dance without words, and you can feel that influence everywhere, in the 5 notes of Close Encounters, in E.T.'s bike flight across the moon. Moments where the music doesn't just accompany the story, it is the story. Even decades later, Spielberg spoke of Fantasia with awe. He never broke it down, never analyzed it. He just remembered the feeling of being overwhelmed, as if the screen itself had come alive. Because some films don't just teach you what cinema can do, they teach you that cinema can be magic. But Spielberg's education in film wasn't all wonder and enchantment. The next influence would drag him into shadows, a story of power, silence, and corruption that shook him to the core. When Spielberg first watched The Godfather, he didn't leave inspired. He left shaken. Francis Ford Coppola had done something Spielberg thought was impossible. He turned silence into a weapon. He turned shadows into dialogue, and he made power feel terrifyingly human. Spielberg later admitted, "When I saw it, I thought, I'll never be that good." That wasn't jealousy, that was awe. Because The Godfather wasn't just about the mafia, it was about corrosion, the slow unraveling of morality, the way power doesn't shout, it whispers. You can see its fingerprints all over Spielberg's darker work, Schindler's List, Munich, even in moments of Saving Private Ryan, the quiet dread, the restraint, the courage to hold a shot in silence until it breaks you. Spielberg learned something vital here. You don't earn respect as a director by spectacle. You earn it by truth, frame by frame, shadow by shadow. But the film that defined him most wasn't about gangsters, deserts, or cosmic mysteries. It was about something far more fragile, a single man, a small town, and the crushing weight of an ordinary life. It wasn't a war epic. It wasn't a Space Odyssey. It wasn't even a blockbuster. It was just a story about a man, a small town, and the unbearable weight of despair. For Spielberg, It's a Wonderful Life wasn't entertainment. It was revelation. He didn't watch it like a critic. He watched it like a child holding his breath. When George Bailey stood on that bridge, broken, ready to give up, Spielberg said he cried harder than he ever had in front of a screen. This film didn't dazzle with scale, it crushed with honesty. Frank Capra showed that cinema's greatest power wasn't escape, it was reflection. And Spielberg carried that with him for the rest of his life, in E.T., where a lonely boy finds the universe in his backyard, in Catch Me If You Can, where a father's absence echoes louder than any chase, in The Fabelmans, which might as well be Spielberg whispering, "This is my George Bailey." Capra proves something most directors run from. Hope isn't naive, hope is courage. And that quiet courage became Spielberg's secret weapon. The reason audiences didn't just watch his films, they felt them, because in the end, Spielberg wasn't chasing spectacle. He was chasing belief. The belief that small lives matter, that sacrifices echo, that stories can save us. Steven Spielberg didn't build his empire on instinct alone. He built it on 6 obsessions. From deserts that swallowed heroes in Lawrence of Arabia, to the terrifying silence of 2001. From the heartbreak of a guy named Joe, to the dreamlike wonder of Fantasia. From the shadows of The Godfather, to the fragile hope of It's a Wonderful Life. Each one left a scar, a lesson, a blueprint. Together, they didn't just shape a filmmaker. They shaped the way we see movies, the way we feel them, the way we believe in them. And maybe that's Spielberg's greatest secret. He never stopped being the boy in the dark, staring at the screen, letting someone else's story change him. That's why his films don't just entertain us, they move us. So here's the real question. If these 6 films could shape Spielberg, what films have shaped you? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the stories behind Hollywood's legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us. Because Spielberg chased wonder. And the truth is, we're all still chasing it too.